Welcome,
Yay.
everybody. Coffee Talk Live. After that, I need this. It's Small Business Stacey here, and we are here with Coffee Talk Live. I have a very special guest today, Stephen Prevost of Joe's Brothers Coffee. Joe. See, I always want to call you Joe. I know there's a story behind this, and we're going to talk about that. Now, Stephen is from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm actually from Washington, D.C. Where are you from? If you're joining us live, go ahead and pop in the comments. Let us know where you are and the name of your coffee shop. We'd love to connect with you. Okay, Stephen, I'm so glad you're joining me today. We're going to talk coffee, marketing, and have a lot of fun along the way. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and, more importantly, how you got into the coffee business?
Well, it's a little bit of a sad start, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll start with sad news and then happy news. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah. So, not really sure where to begin, but I usually just tell people, my brother and my father both had ALS, and my father passed away in 1997. My brother passed away in 2012. So in 2012, as you can imagine, I'm reeling with the death of my brother and trying to make sense of things and make something good come out of something horrible. And he and I both are huge, like, coffee junkies.
Okay.
And at one point he had a coffee shop of his own up north in our hometown. And so it just kind of came to me, I guess, do something with coffee. So I conceived of Joe's Brother Coffee. I was going to call it Joe Coffee, but that name was already taken. And so little by little, I started reading and learning about coffee. And then I contracted with another roaster in Michigan I would buy their beans and put my name on them. But as I was talking to people about my story and my brand and everything like that, they were just like, meh, you're not doing it yourself, so I was like, okay, the next move is get a roaster, and start roasting my own. So that was in 2013, 2014 when I started doing that. And here we are, 2019, still working out a lot of kinks, so I roast in memory of my brother, and then the profits that I get, I donate to ALS research. There's a couple of national charities, and then there's one here locally that I've been really working with lately. So a lot of my money goes to them, and they actually, they're more of a hands-on care services kind of organization. So if somebody is newly diagnosed, they have support groups. If they're in need of a wheelchair, they provide a wheelchair. If they're in need of counseling, they have that too. Or they can help people maneuver through the nightmare of working with doctors and researchers and getting into test groups, things like that. So, so yeah, like I said, it started a little bit sad, but it's turned into good. So it's bringing a lot of awareness to ALS, and it's a really good conversation starter. So, and people are really behind it now that they know that I'm roasting my own and things like that. So yeah, it's been a huge learning experience.
Well, I love that you're so open and willing to share. What was your brother's favorite coffee drink?
Pretty much anything with caffeine in it, and a lot of it. Yeah, he he did, well, the funny thing is neither of us were really what you might call coffee nerds or snobs. It was just give me all the coffee I can drink and dress it up a little bit once in a while. 99% of the coffee I drink is black. You know, I got off sugar a couple years ago.
Right?
Yeah, yeah. So I try to keep it natural as much as possible. But you know, yeah, I'm not quite a snob, but I always tell people, if you want to ruin it, go ahead and put cream and sugar in it. But
I know that's what they say, but
right.
I like mine that way.
Yep.
Well, tell everybody a little bit about, you know, how did you learn how to get into roasting and what makes your coffee so special?
Well, it's a lot of reading, a lot of reading.
So you self-taught yourself.
Yeah, essentially, because there's not a school that you can go to really, unless you want to spend, you know, $5,000 or $6,000 and go out west to the Specialty Coffee Association. They host a couple of learning events a few times a year, that kind of thing. But that, you know, that was well beyond my budget. So it was just number one, finding a roaster that I could afford to buy, because I'm cash everything. I don't get a loan, you know, I'm working out of my pocket. So whatever little bit of money I could scrounge up. So I saved for a couple of years, about a year and a half before I got my first roaster. And what I got was, it's a fluid airbed roaster. I always tell people it's kind of like a popcorn popper on steroids, because I'm sure younger people probably may not know, but you know, I grew up on air popped popcorn with my mom, and so what it is it's a chamber where the air is blowing the popcorn kernels around in like a tornado, and then of course your freshly popped popcorn comes out and falls into the bowl. Well, the coffee roaster works on that same principle, just not the same design. But it turns the beans around in like a tornado. It's like a fluid bed of air. So the beans are swishing around in the chamber and cooking. As to where more traditional coffee roasters, they have a drum roaster, which is kind of like a dryer. It's, you know, it's a big drum that's turning like this, and there's a gas burner underneath, and there's air blowing in there. So which is what we've all grew up drinking, you know, drum roasted coffee, which depending on who's roasting it, could taste great. It could taste really bad. But that's kind of it in a nutshell. So that the fluid airbed roasting is a little bit new. It was created by a guy named Civitz. And I kind of forget what year it was, but it was long before I was born. And so he designed this air roaster, which basically it's just like I explained. It's pushing hot air up through the beans, and the beans float around and they cook. So what happens is there's very little contact with the metal. In a drum roaster, like I said, so the beans are turning around like this in a drum, and so there's a lot of contact with the metal. So you're getting direct heat conveyance from the drum to the bean, as opposed to in the fluid airbed roaster, you're getting all of your heat transfer is from the air to the bean. So you get a lot less burnt flavor, and you get a lot more even cook. It's kind of like a convection oven versus a standard oven. If you got the fan.
Well, you know your stuff. That's obviously for sure. So, I mean, do you only offer one type of bean, or tell us a little bit about what you offer, and also tied in with that, do you only offer it locally, or, you know, tell us about your distribution?
I sell most of my beans locally, but I do have a website, you know, that folks can buy offline, and then I can ship to them. I have a couple of regulars who are kind of down in your neck of the woods, and Georgia, I think, is kind of down towards DC, isn't it? I think
Close, yeah.
it's out east a little bit. But yeah, I've actually had orders from California, Texas, New York, so here and there.
Okay.
So yeah, I've reached a few people across the country, but like I said, yeah, most of my customers are local. And this summer was the first summer I started doing farmers markets.
Oh, talk about that. That's a great strategy.
Yeah, it is really great. It's really kind of the best way to get to know your customers and see them face to face, because as a roaster, I don't have a shop where it's not retail where people can just walk in and buy coffee. So getting out into a farmer's market is a great opportunity, because you really get to see people in their natural environment, where they're relaxed and they're open to seeing and trying new things. And but yeah, that's really great. So I get to tell my story. I get to talk about my brother Joe, which is always cool because he was like a super great guy. And then of course talk about ALS and coffee, which are like all my favorite subjects.
Right.
So yeah, that's really great. Which has actually turned into a couple of opportunities for me as far as I can't think of the word. I met a guy who's a salesperson who sells solar power systems to large, medium-sized, large corporations. And I asked him, I said, well, what do you do for a new customer who buys your system? He's like, sign the check. And I'm like, no, I mean, how do you thank them for, becoming a customer? Do you gift them anything? He's like, well, not really. I said, well, maybe, a nice pound of specialty coffee and a coffee mug with your company name on it might be a nice, say, hey, obviously it's not a lot of money, but it's just a little something to say, hey, thanks for coming on board with our company. And he's like, yeah, okay, great. I'll take 30 bags.
Wow, brilliant marketing. Love that.
Yeah, so it was just off a conversation because, he came to my booth and was checking out my coffee, and I told him my story and so on and so forth. And I really kind of kidded around with him. So I said, well, if the whole sales thing with the solar panels don't work out, you can always maybe sell some coffee, come to work for me. And we had a good joke and a good laugh about it. And anyway, that's kind of what led to the other opportunity. So yeah.
Maybe soon there'll be solar roasters. Who knows, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You never know. Especially if the whole grid goes, solar power, wind power, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be interesting.
Well, you gave two great marketing examples. I'm always a big proponent of taking your business to the people. So I commend you for doing farmers markets because it's great for lead generation. You get to sample, meet and greet, shake hands, and be active in your community.
Yep.
And the idea of helping people that you talk to, help them help their customers, clients, and patients. And
Yep.
by suggesting, hey, giving a bag of coffee and a branded cup, like they wouldn't have thought of that themselves. So now you get to be a go-giver. It's sort of like this amazing circle, right? Where, you've now sold some product, you help somebody, they're helping people. And that's a wonderful cycle. I love to see that.
Yeah. I was really excited about it. It was cool talking to him because I learned a lot about his business too, which is, solar panels, which I'm kind of like a nerd when it comes to stuff like that. One of my favorite TV shows was How Did They Do That? And it was, so you just has nothing to do with my life, but
right.
It was fun and it was interesting to watch and listen and learn. So, yeah.
Well, I'm curious to hear from you. You focus in mostly on a local area.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to know what you're sort of hearing out there in the coffee community, for these independent coffee shop owners. are things good? Are things slowing down? Like what's the word on the street about how things are going out there?
The coffee business in general, the industry is growing like gangbusters. In the United States, in the United States is kind of, it's growing okay. In places like China, it's really blowing the roof off.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. So in different parts of the world, in developing countries, it's really going crazy gangbusters. Here, what I'm seeing, probably because I'm closest to it, but what I'm seeing is a surge in people like myself who love coffee. They want to get into the business. So they buy a small roaster, they learn what they can, they learn on their own. And they, depending on their local market, is they get a shop, or they want to have a coffee shop where they're making drinks and not just roasting coffee. Some guys do that. Some do just like me, who is just, I'm kind of more focused on wholesale end of things. Currently, I mean, maybe.
Do you aspire to have a store one day, or you just want to stay a roaster?
Eventually I want to have what I call a coffee emporium.
Oh, okay.
where people would come in. It would be like a retail place where they could see the roasting happening, or and they could buy drinks from the coffee bar. And then there would be equipment, like home equipment, brewers and things like that you could buy for your home, stuff like that. And then some gear, some shirts, hats, hoodies and whatnot, stuff like that. Just everything coffee related would be like this giant toy store for
right.
Yeah, so what I'm seeing a lot of, what I'm thinking of is there's a guy who started roasting, I think, I don't know, a couple years before me. I met him online. He's out west in Oregon. He started out with a real small 1 pound roaster like myself. And he just grew it and grew it and grew it. He's now in like 30 grocery stores. He has hotels, restaurants. He's really built a huge brand for himself over like the past 6-7 years. And now he just opened up a drive-through coffee shop.
Great.
Yeah. So, I mean, he was just kind of like, well, like you hear the story, a lot of people, I'm sick of my job. I want to do something I love. And so he did. And then he went full, headlong into it and really worked his butt off and grew his business. And I think he said, was it last year, he did $2 million in sales.
Nice. Yeah.
So,
so that's a great cups to gallons example, and we all start somewhere. We all start with that first bag of coffee, or, opening up our coffee shop with, I love, everybody always has a story behind their shop and why they started it and their passion, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And so when you go out and, because you always have your ear to the wall, so to speak, and know what's going on out there. I started the Cups to Gallons group because it's teaching coffee shop owners how to get into catering. And I find it so shocking how many of these guys aren't doing it. Do you find the same thing?
Yeah. I've seen that quite often. And I guess it really kind of depends on your business model, what you want. But I think a lot of the times they don't see that, or even maybe conceive of the idea that, well, maybe that's an arm of my company that I should have, another revenue generating part, rather than, just depending on word on the street or the college down the street that's going to bring those kids in and buy my coffee drinks. They're so focused on what's like right in front of them that they just don't really see that as an avenue to generate more money. As a roaster,
like the example you just gave, the guy who was able to scale to $2 million. Mm-hmm. That is very hard to do in one coffee shop, right? When you are selling one cup at a time, or in your case, one bag of coffee at a time, it's hard to leverage and scale, even for you, right? If you want to scale, you're going to have to get another roaster and add more and more.
Yeah.
So by adding a different business model to these coffee shops, they already have the infrastructure. They have, the shop is their commissary. They have the client base. They have the staffing. They have the product. Really, all they need is just a few minor investments in mobile equipment, like a mobile espresso machine and such.
Yeah.
And catering is so lucrative and profitable. It was the key driver. You know my story, that took me from $500,000 in debt to a 7-figure profitable business. And so that's why I started this Cups to Gallons group, because I really want to teach them, how to get into catering. So, that's why I love bringing people like you onto the show to really get the nitty gritty. What's going on in the world out there?
Yeah, there's something really exciting about the coffee. Again, I'm coming from a roaster's point of view.
Right.
I have retail experience, but in my career life, but as far as my coffee life, I just love the whole thing of just roasting. There's something about it, it's like people who just love to bake apple pies. I'm all about, I just love to do the beans. I just love to roast the beans. I love to see them change from green to light tan to a little dark brown, or whatever, and so on through the whole progression and stuff like that. So, but what I've seen here locally is there's, I don't know, 2 or 3 of them that I know of who are people, caterers, I guess you might call them, but that's their whole business model. They don't have a shop. I'm sure they have a commissary, they must, but they don't have like a brick and mortar coffee shop. They go directly to the people. They cater events like weddings and business meetings and so on and so forth. And they have a simple bar. It's probably not more than 6 feet long. It's got a little tiny one group espresso maker on there. They got all their cups stacked up, and they got a few syrups, probably not more than 2 or, I don't know, probably 4 or 6 syrups. And then of course, their coffee and whatever it is you need to have just to make espresso drinks and brewed coffee. And that's what they do. It's on a cart, it's got wheels, they roll it off the van, they roll it into the place, plug in, and you're ready to go. And you're serving, I don't know, however many people, 100, 200, 300 people at the event. And then they roll back out, put it on the van and drive away. That's their whole thing. And it seems to be working. They've got a huge following online. Lots of great compliments in the comments every time I look at their page. They're just, people love them. And the one guy that I know, he's dresses up in like old timey, got the bow tie, the suspenders, got the white shirt with the little puffy sleeves. Kind of looks like an old bartender from back in the day.
Okay.
That's kind of his thing, the greased slick back hair, little mustache with the handlebars. But it's really limited to your imagination, this business. You can get into anything you want to do. So as far as being a coffee shop owner, the 2 things I would suggest, the number 1 thing I would suggest is buy your beans from a local person who's like right in your area. Everybody, is like, oh, I got to have the best beans, 100%, Rainforest Alliance only something, or whatever, which those are all great and wonderful, but you can find them from a roaster who's right in your own city. I'm a huge proponent of shopping local. I always have, probably will go to my grave that way. I stay out of the big box stores as much as humanly possible. I can't stand them. I would rather, go into a mom and pop grocery store and pay 50 cents more per item because they're my neighbor. I want to support their business. But so yeah, a lot of what I see in a lot of coffee shops is they're buying beans from other roasters halfway across the country. It's really strange, which they're great beans. And I've done that myself. I still do that occasionally. I have to order from different roasters around the country to kind of see what they're doing, and taste their beans and maybe chat with them online a little bit. But I
Do you think it's maybe because they don't know about you, or they already had a long-term relationship?
No, I don't think it's, well, number one, yeah, they probably don't know about me because I'm so small. However, I'm in a town in Grand Rapids. There's probably 15 coffee roasters here, 20 maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, quite a few. There's actually quite a few. So it's anybody. I mean, if you, all you got to do is open your eyes and you'll see there's a local coffee roaster here. And I'm sure we can't be like in a bubble here in Grand Rapids. I'm sure there's other cities like DC. There's probably, if you were to search local coffee roaster or DC coffee roaster, I would certain you would come up with probably at least a dozen coffee roasters that are just little bitty businesses. Some of them might even be bigger businesses, but they're there. I mean, there's I can't even remember. I should have looked this up, but there's literally thousands upon thousands of coffee roasters across the United States.
Yeah, I believe that.
So if you're supporting a business who's out, say, if you're in DC and you're supporting a business out in California, getting your coffee beans from them, which is fine. That's totally, if that's your thing, do it. But I would suggest you should have at least 50% of your offerings in your coffee bar from a local roaster. If you want to highlight different roasters from around the country, that's great because they're everywhere and they're amazing. But you really should pay homage to your local people too. So if you're going to offer, say, I don't know, 6 different beans in your shop, 3 of those beans should be from local roasters, whether they be blends or single origins or something like spectacularly, this kind of bean only comes around once every 5 years.
Yeah.
$25 a pound. Great. But make sure you get that from a local guy, or lady, I should say, because there's a lot of lady roasters there too.
Yeah.
And they don't get enough attention. I know that. Or enough recognition. They definitely deserve it because they work just as hard or more hard than guys do. So, because we're lazy.
I don't know about that.
But so yeah, I think you should definitely show off your local roasters. And then number 2, like you said, get out there and cater, or host events in your local, in your building. Get out and touch those corporate clients and say, hey, I got a little room here. We can have a little meeting, or you guys can have a party, host your Christmas party at my place. We'll shut the whole place down for one night and you can have the whole place to yourself or something like that. And, just make a real party out of it. I think that's an opportunity that a lot of shops miss.
Yeah, and now we're going to be coming up into Q4 holiday season. So, now actually is the time to get that marketing plan in place and start doing your outreach. Because if you start doing it in November and December, it's too late.
Yeah, you got to be calling on them right now. Get out there, like you said, leave the shop, go out there, meet them face to face, and just say, hey, I'm Joe. I own Joe's coffee shop down on the corner.
Yep.
Have you ever thought about having a party or an event, a meeting outside of your building? Bring them over here. We've got great pastries. We've got great coffee drinks. We'll even decorate according to your brand, something like that. Give them something to really turn those wheels and get them thinking about an opportunity like that.
Wow. Well, Joe, Stephen, you've been so gracious with your time today. So we've run out of time, but any last parting words of advice you can give to the independent coffee shop owner to go from cups to gallons?
Talk to other owners and really get to know your coffee roaster. And that's the other thing about being, buying beans from your local roaster. You can have conversations with them about what kind of coffees maybe you should be offering in your shop, or having those special beans that only come around once every 6 months or a year. Networking basically is what it turns out to be. You know, there seems to be a lot of competition amongst roasters, but I don't want to tell you too much, because then I don't want you taking my part of the my part of the business. I've run into that, which is like, dude, take it easy. It's, you know, I'm not trying to put you out of business.
Right.
Work together basically is there needs to be more of that working together going on. So, because believe it or not, you're all in the same group. Your coffee shop owners lean on each other, help each other, because believe your customers will also go to their shop, and their customers will also come to your shop. It's a share alike kind of thing, especially if you're, you know, competing locally. So yeah.
Well, those are some good parting words of advice. Do good, be good, get good, right?
That's right. And learn. You can never stop learning.
Well, good. I'm glad you're a sponge. Never stop learning. Absolutely. I'm a proponent of that. Yep. So Stephen, how can people get in touch with you to learn more about you, your coffee roasting, and especially your beans?
Well, number one is through my website, joesbrothercoffee.com. That's where I try to direct everybody. If you just want to find some great beans, that's a great place to start. If you want to chat with me personally, I'm available through email, Stephen@jbcbrands.com. I'm on Facebook under Joe's Brother Coffee. I'm on Twitter at Joe's Brother.
You're everywhere.
I'm on Instagram at Joe's Brother Coffee.
And if you're in Grand Rapids, stop by.
That's all right. If you're in
local.
My phone number is on my website. So if anybody wants to call me directly, I take orders via email, text message, through the website, you know. So basically I'm really easy to find. All you got to do is look. Just search Joe's Brother in Google and you'll find me.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining today. And thank you everybody for tuning in. This is Small Business Stacey, your small biz marketing specialist, here to help you learn how to stop selling by the cup and start selling by the gallon by getting into lucrative catering. Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.